Hello, and welcome back to Why This Film, the podcast where we reach back into your childhood, pluck out a movie, give it a rewatch, and have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade, and welcome back. You watched it so many times before, and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it, and now you show it to your friends, and they're like, what?
What am I watching?
Why this film? And I'm joined today by Liam from the Conversation Hat podcast. Hello!
Oh my God, I'm so happy to be here. You did warn me you'd had a lot of coffee, but...
I'm on my fourth. It's fine though. No one will notice.
Yeah. No,
this is
it's
just what
fine.
I'm like. The IMDb breakdown for your chosen movie, which is The Fellowship of the Ring 2001 Extended Edition. This is legitimately from IMDb.
Cool.
A meek hobbit from the Shire and 8 companions set out on a journey to destroy the powerful One Ring and save Middle-earth from the Dark Lord Sauron. So, Liam, why this film?
I love that IMDb intro because there's no questions.
Yeah.
What's a Sauron?
Who's to say?
How meek is he?
What's a hobbit?
It's all covered in there. It's fine. Man, you know, like at high school and college, you'd meet kids who made Radiohead their personality, or they'd just discovered Nirvana. So imagine that, but it's Fellowship of the Ring.
Love it.
Yeah, because I had no friends.
Yeah.
So...
Who did it, though?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well,
if you did, you're a liar.
Apparently the cool people.
Nah.
But I full on made Fellowship of the Ring my personality. And it did not backfire in any meaningful way. I'm still really into it. I'm still dressing for the job that I want. Yes, thank you. That was so many octaves higher than I thought it would be.
It always happens, and I'm never picked up on the mic, so everyone's always like, why is it silent for so long?
Because the
and
screeching
it's me
cuts out the mic.
screaming
Yeah,
to the gods.
Isn't it lovely?
Goodness me, where did you get it?
You'll have to ask my lovely partner. This was a birthday present.
I'm going to Instagram them immediately
You're gonna have to, yes.
and be like, WTF, where can I get one? Does it come in dresses? I love it.
It's quite long. So we're talking about a jumper.
Yes.
I'm wearing a jumper that's got a sort of corporate emblazoned, I think it's Narsil, the broken sword with the Tree of Gondor, Tree of Numenor, sorry nerds. It's a lovely sort of navy blue jumper. It's quite long. I think you could wear it as a dress if you really wanted to.
Nice. Just whack about round there.
Exactly, yes. So dress for the job you want. I want to be whatever sword tree means.
Sword tree.
Sword tree.
It's gorgeous. It falls under my favourite category of clothing, which is subtle reference to nerdy thing. More of that, please. I don't want crap
their
with
merch
like
was great.
Lord of the Rings on it. I want like, the prancing pony or whatever. And it's
something
like
a little more subtle, a little more in there. Not like deep lore cuts. Sorry, nerds. But like...
Is that going to be the catchphrase of this episode? Sorry, nerds.
I've got... One of my notes here is that I'm not a Tolkien nerd. I sort of resent Tolkien nerds. I'm a Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy nerd.
I think that I've never, full disclosure, I've never read the books. I've tried.
It's not worth it.
I've tried so many times, but not only do I find bizarrely, and it's only now in my 30s that I'm like admitting this. It's like I'm going to Alcoholics Anonymous, finally here at my 30s, and I'm facing the truth. I'm like, I find reading books difficult. I find it hard to do. I cannot, especially if it was written in like Edwardian or Victorian or like pre-2000s Britain. Like I read children's books and then I stopped reading books, and now I reread children's books or I read like autobiographies. Yes. And like every now and then I might read a work of fiction, and every now and then it might be something in that bizarre style, but I really have to fucking concentrate. And Tolkien is the absolute, him and Austen are the fucking worst for it, because I never trained my brain to understand what the fuck they were talking about. So I'm just like reading it like, oh, this is hurting me.
So I mean, my background with Lord of the Rings and Fellowship in particular, I had a bit of a crunchy childhood. So I'd like play in forests, like build things with sticks.
Nice.
And I occasionally would have a friend that would also like to play with sticks. They weren't as committed as me, though, so I had to get rid of them.
It's always difficult. I've always found that. I'd be like,
You're using the wrong stick, mate. Yeah.
Try harder.
Just try harder. Just be better at sticks.
Yeah.
My parents sort of picked up on that and realised, this kid needs to know about The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. So my mother read to me The Hobbit when I was quite small.
Oh, that's very sweet.
And then Lord of the Rings. What was particularly exciting was I was really into Warhammer, and just before the Lord of the Rings films were public knowledge, Warhammer started creating a Lord of the Rings tabletop battle game.
Yes, I remember constantly going in to look at them and then not buying them.
Well, who has the money? Like,
Right, especially
even,
at age 11.
Yeah, in like the early 2000s.
Pocket money does not cover that.
Yeah, I mean, you could get into it now, or you could have a mortgage.
It's your choice.
It really is. So I was really into Lord of the Rings, and then, I'm picking things from all over the place. So I think we were reading the books, so we were ever so slightly ahead of the films.
Okay.
And I tried sort of reading these books independently, and at like age, I don't know, early teens, couldn't get into them. I couldn't retain information.
Yeah.
My eyes would sort of scan over the page, and I'd be like...
Or then Legolas would begin to sing, and you'd be like...
You just... Ooh, an entire chapter for the song. That's somebody... I mean, his elves, he lives for thousands of years. Like, of course his songs are going to be... He's got the time. He has the time.
I don't have the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think we were ever so slightly ahead of the books, and I hadn't realised that. Sorry, we were reading the books ever so slightly ahead of the films. I didn't know I was dyslexic at the time. Wouldn't for 20 years because the school system is just tip-top. So I was really ahead of the films. I knew it was going to happen in Fellowship. I knew it would happen in the next film. And because I was really into this Games Workshop Warhammer tabletop game, I knew the stats of all these characters and their names.
Oh, wow.
The big red Grinch guy with the top knot that kills Boromir, spoilers, his name is Lurtz.
Oh.
His name is Lurtz. And he's credited in the credits as Lurtz.
But no, I did know that.
Yeah.
It's funny. I didn't go to see Lord of the Rings in the cinemas because even though the Fellowship was a PG, the other two were 12As.
Yes, they were.
And I don't think I was allowed because my parents very rightfully, you're talking about someone that was too frightened to go see The Phantom Menace in the cinema. Like,
it's spooky,
I was
man.
scared
It's
of
spooky.
everything. Everything.
What in particular was it? Was it the posters of The Phantom Menace with the red face guy?
I think it was like, he looked like a fucking demon.
He did look
like he looked like a devil man.
He looked like the ass end of a spider.
And it was called The Phantom Menace. It might also have just been a thing where I was like, I'm not interested in Star Wars. I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember I was frightened of fucking everything, so I didn't go to see Lord of the Rings in cinemas. It wouldn't be until The Hobbit came out that I actually got to see Middle-earth in cinemas, and that's why I love the first Hobbit movie, because it was my first introduction to Middle-earth on a big screen. So I was like, fuck you, I love Radagast the Brown. So I would watch The Fellowship of the Ring for the first time on my 11th birthday party, and the party was that everybody came round and we were to watch The Fellowship of the Ring.
Cool party. Yeah.
And it was a slumber party, we had pizza, we were all in our pajamas, and we're talking like early 2000s girly sleepover, but watching The Fellowship of the Ring.
Right.
So we've got our like fluffy pillows and our pink teddy bears, and we're hiding behind them when the like ring wraiths come on, because I was so frightened.
Like to an 11-year-old, ring
so
wraiths are
scary.
terrifying. They're proper scary.
Frightening.
And they're not even the creepiest
they're not even
thing in the whole
meant
film.
to be the scariest bit. And I was scared of Gollum.
Sure.
I like when he does the like. And it's like, that's Gollum. He's been following us for 3 days now. And I'm like,
Gandalf, you need to disclose some stuff, man. You didn't say that'd
Gandalf,
be whatever a Gollum is.
Communicate.
Yes.
Like, come on, man. Stop being a Dumbledore about it all. So I was terrified of this movie, but I loved it. It latched on to my heart. My favourite movie of all time was then, still is now, is Dragonheart 1996.
Lovely.
So we're talking sword and fucking sorcery. Yeah. And that is what this shit is to the nth degree.
Implications of dragons, you don't necessarily see them, but
yes,
they're
100%.
definitely there.
Definitely there. I was in. I was in to the point where there were two things I would do in my spare time. So yes, I had friends, and yes, I watched things with friends.
Weird.
But I also just did stuff by myself. Like, for example, there were two things that I would do. Season 7 of Buffy has a moment where a woman is giving some information to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then she is stabbed in the back, spoiler alert, by the bad guy. And she like stops halfway through a sentence and falls forward and dies. I would do that on my like bed. I would practice like talking to someone and then getting stabbed halfway through and then falling face first, like practicing. So I would do that. And I bring that up because the other thing that I would do, if I was anywhere near any form of stretch of water, primarily the bath, with any form of jug, or I would go find a jug or some form of container to be able to, by myself, with this stretch of water, usually the bath, fill the jug and go, things that were, things that are, and some things that have not yet come to pass. And I would just do that.
So good.
And like pour the water the way she pours the water. Like there was something that trapped it, that caught itself in my brain and was just like,
Blanchett pour,
you do that now.
know?
It's so, the pour is so majestic, the way she delivers her lines, or her whole opening monologue is so, the way she modulates her voice. It just, I was like, I'm in, whatever this is, sign me up. And then of course you try and sign up and there's people there being like, well, have you read the Silmarillion? And I'm like, no, because it's basically the yellow pages for Middle Earth and I'm not interested.
It's not.
But I am interested, I just can't read it. So I listen to the audiobooks now because I want the story and I want the lore and I'm on the Wikipedia pages trying to figure out how the Nazgul are related to like the fucking whatevers. You know, I'm watching The Rings of Power, really trying to get into it, but sometimes I'm just like, look, you're just going to have to visually show it to me because otherwise I can't access.
Visual learner. All of these elves have basically the same 3 vowels as their name.
Yeah.
And how can I keep track?
Little bit. Obviously, Figwit is in this movie. Yes. I'm sorry, I've had too much coffee. I'm jumping around.
No, you're fine.
Did you watch this in the cinema?
Yes.
How many times?
Twice. We had a routine where my parents, and a couple of their friends, and any number of our siblings and their kids would go and see Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potter films because it was okay to do that then. And then I had my one Playing with Sticks in the Forest friend. I would then go and see it with them shortly after.
Nice.
Because they came out around Christmas time, not to make it too like early 2000s Broken Britain. My friend at the time, like, he didn't have a lot of money. He couldn't do anything that wasn't saving for Christmas presents for his parents. He was a lovely kid, but that's what he had to do in December. So in January, we would go and see like the last screening of the 3 Lord of the Rings films.
Nice.
So I had like a nice... I saw it twice in films, and then I think that summer the extended DVDs would come out, which I would then just rinse and repeat until the next film came out.
Yeah.
And I always knew what was going to happen in the next film because I had the Warhammer books with all they've got separate figurines for gambling and Hammer the Gatekeeper, but Hammer the Gatekeeper is at Edoras. That doesn't make any sense. Sorry, nerds, but that's what you sound like. I mean, like, there's a whole world of, like, Bechdel tests that we can get into if we really want to.
I don't think the Fellowship of the Ring passes the Bechdel test.
No.
That's fine. We've got it out the way.
Yeah.
I'll accept it. Because
yeah, go on.
Arwen, Warrior Princess, is my favourite. That was another thing that I would do as well, actually. Pretend I was like Arwen riding on the horse. Because she had that like whoosh, cheekbone enhancing dash. And then she would do the like, I don't know the Elvish, I'm sorry everyone, but the like, and all the like water horses would come. I fucking love this movie,
man. Water horses, man. It's so good.
good.
That's one of the things that I like about the Peter Jackson films over the books is that Arwen is in them. Yeah. And I was a 14-year-old kid. It's Liv Tyler.
It's Liv Tyler.
Don't make me connect the dots for you nerds. So I really love her character in this. In the books, she's just Aragorn's occasional girlfriend. Yeah. She doesn't really show up. I don't think she has any dialogue. I don't think, especially in Fellowship, she has any dialogue. In the book, I think it's Arwen's brothers that come and save Frodo.
Yeah, well, it's Glorfindel that...
Glorfindel, yes.
I do know that.
Yeah. So, yeah, adding Arwen then and then having that sort of romantic B-plot, I think really adds something.
It's funny, isn't it? Because Arwen sort of gets her warrior princess moment and then just, like, changes into a pretty dress from which she will stay in until the return of the king. Yes. And do nothing, which is fine because they were going to put her in Helm's Deep, and they didn't, and I respect that choice. Yes. Ultimately, because I think it would have distracted and just caused stakes where there didn't need to be stakes. Yes. So I want to veer away, if it's okay, from like comparing film to book. So just as a disclaimer going forward, we will just be talking about the Peter Jackson 2001, The Fellowship of the Ring movie, and because is this fair to say? Is it the best movie ever made of all time?
Well, yeah.
I think it is.
So, okay, Fellowship is probably my... Oh, it's so hard because...
It's so impossible. It's the best movie. Like, Lindsay Ellis in her things talks about it where she's like, it's the best complete 3-act structure movie, and the other 2 films will try and borrow the structure to get the same emotional highs, and obviously can't.
Yes.
But here it's 100%. It's so exciting. We're stepping into the world for the first time, so they do really good world building. And we are primarily talking about the extended editions here, so we will be mentioning things that you might not necessarily get in the other ones, such as, I always love it when they take the time to be like, let's have a sing in the pub. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, Merry and Pippin just really not understanding the urgency of any of this at any point. Yes, so
I was obsessed with Pippin.
Of course you were.
And like they
He was the
really
dreamboat.
knew what they were doing with that. Like now, it's like when I was a kid, Buttercup was my favourite. No, Blossom was my favourite Powerpuff Girl.
Right, okay.
No, yeah, Buttercup. Buttercup was the green one. The green one was
You need to
because
describe it in
we were
colours.
like, okay, yeah. So the green Powerpuff Girl was my favourite,
Yes.
Buttercup, because she was the like feminist, like angry one.
Yeah.
And now I grow up and I'm like, Blossom is my favourite because she's the level-headed leader and I really
Red
appreciate that. The red one. The pink one. So
Pink,
I
sorry.
really like that about Blossom.
Yeah.
And so now it's the same where I'm like, Pippin was everything because he was built to be everything. He was built from the ground up to be everything, and they ticked all of those boxes and it was perfect. It truly was. Now I'm like, Meriadoc is where it's fucking at. Like, he is the guy. He's the moment. He's everything. I adore him. Whereas, like, Pippin's the funny one, the silly one, the innocent one, the younger one, the hot one, the dreamy one. He's the comic relief. Like, he's all the things that a 12-year-old is like, yes, I like that one. And it's so weird to me because I was truly like, yes, I like that one, thank you. And also I just love this in general. And then when people at school would talk about it, they would be like, who's hotter, Aragorn or Legolas? And I'm like, I don't have an answer for you.
Look
I don't-
lower. Look down a bit.
Yeah, but even then I wasn't like fancying anyone in these movies.
No, okay.
Obviously now I'm like, the answer's Aragorn, and if you choose Orlando Bloom, you're a fucking idiot. No offense, Orlando Bloom, but like you were fresh out of drama school with like a baby face, and that's Viggo Mortensen who like brought his own like sword sharpener to set, having replaced my actual crush of the time, Dorian Gray, from the League of
wild.
Extraordinary Gentlemen, Lestat from Queen of the Damned.
But Pete Jackson lucked out because they got... the information on sparse is why Dorian Gray was not Aragorn in the end. But then they got rid of him or he quit,
He was
whatever.
too young. I
Was he
think
just too
Peter
young?
Jackson.
Okay.
They did like 2 weeks of filming, and he was like, "I fucked up. He's too young."
But
and I
then-
think they made a really good call there. And then they happened to find Aragorn, son of Arathorn, wandering the Hollywood Hills,
He's
I
just
guess,
walking
and
by
employed
with
him.
a sword and like, hey, can I borrow that sword? Actually, are you free
Are
as
you
well?
free?
I think there's such an interest. Like the meme is that as a kid, as a girl kid, you're supposed to fancy Legolas. Then you get a bit older and it's Aragorn, and then you get into your 30s like hobbits.
Yeah.
And he's sort of the same. Like I went on a real journey of Arwen to Eowyn to Rosie Cotton. You know.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's almost Samwise is the ultimate
Yes,
goal
it
now.
really
if you
is.
could meet a Samwise in real life, you've won.
Yes. And someone somewhere has, and I hate them for it.
Yeah.
I do wonder if Merry and Pippin have the most sort of complete character arc of all the Fellowship characters.
They do get to do a lot more. Like Sam is obviously wonderful, but he doesn't change, and that's
He's
his
consistent.
strength.
Yes.
And that's why he's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And it works with the two of what they're doing. But obviously, like Merry and Pippin get to have full-on fucking... My God. Like, Sam comes back to the Shire and he's like, yeah, I've seen some shit, but you know what? I'm really good at just, like, compartmentalising it and sticking it to the back of my brain because dandelions are what's important now. My wife, my kids, let's go. Whereas Merry and Pippin are probably sat there like, I was at war. I was at a war.
I'm a Thane of Rohan. I've been to Rohan once. Why am I back here?
I think I'm going to go to elf heaven.
I go to Elf Heaven.
And they're just, like, in the prancing pony, like... Cool.
Anyone want a song?
Can
Nah.
anyone relate to me anymore? I don't know. Like, again, don't tell me about... Well, dude, I am interested, but primarily it's just funny to see them grow from the, like, silly little things that we see.
Yeah.
into the amazing characters that we are. And we will be doing all 3 movies, obviously. Like, this is just, I don't know why this is a podcast, but now there's a screen. I'm just
this
like.
This is the inevitable videofication of podcasting. You've won, YouTube, apparently.
You've won. So, like, I mean, I watch this movie maybe every 6 months.
Yes. Yeah, a couple times a year at least. The extended edition always.
And I think it's just beloved. It's like, it's almost, I don't know anyone, like, on the spectrum. As I say, like, people were talking about it at school. Like, who do you crush? Do you know? No, I just remembered who my crush was. It was Faramir. Because it was David Wenham.
Fine, of course. Of course he is. But you've got to wait an entire movie because he wasn't in Fellowship either. So you've got to take what you can get.
Everyone in this movie is so. This is the trouble with this movie. I feel everyone's already said everything there is to say about it, and every time it gets brought up, I'm just like, it's perfect. And all I do is sit here and be like, I love it. I think everyone is perfectly cast. I think it's really fun. I used to watch all of the behind the scenes moments all the time. I knew who Figwit was. I'm like in. I'm like, I feel like I'm in. Yeah. I was obsessed. Like, I love it so much. What else is there to say?
Well, I have some personal cringe from my childhood, which is brand new to the world, which won't have been untapped information.
Porcupine, please.
So I've had hair like this. Audio listeners, you don't get to know what my hair is. Sorry. You just have to imagine. I've had long hair since I was like a kid, like 11 or something. So before I think Fellowship came out, and then like, you know, the kind of bullying you get when you're in any way different is incredible. But what was great is, so I was also overweight as a kid, and there was something really satisfying as having long hair, because I was bullied for having long hair, not for being fat. And
nice.
It's like, yeah, but I've chosen this, you idiot. So I win.
Joke's on you.
And I think everyone now that bullied me recognises that I was a legend back then, and they feel bad about everything.
That's good.
So I have one. Is what I tell myself when I can't sleep.
Yeah. Just in the mirror.
Yeah, of course, you're fine. You won. And then when the Lord of the Rings came out, everyone was just like, oh, are you trying to be Legolas? And I was like, actually, I'm trying to be Elrond.
Oh.
Because he's got a library. And the implicit intelligence. I can't read, dyslexic as hell. Don't know this because I'm in secondary school, but I'm dyslexic, haven't read any of these books. So they were constantly sort of like jabs about that. But again, that was something I had control of, so I didn't mind it so much. And something I'd completely forgotten about my childhood, a few years back, I did some work at the school I went to as a kid, which is in terms of like unveiling hidden trauma, really great. Would highly recommend. And one of the things I'd completely forgotten about, I was having some drinks with a teacher that happened to be there when I was a kid. And they were saying, oh yeah, to the other staff, oh yeah, Liam went to this school when he was a kid, and he learned Elvish so he could cuss out the other kids and we wouldn't know what he said. And I was like, oh, I do remember that. I didn't learn Elvish. I was saying gibberish. And it's hilarious that you remember that 20 years later.
Yeah, and you think that I was going above and beyond.
It was like, well, his grades in French and Spanish are poor, but he knows Elvish. Yeah, so like, I do not know Elvish.
Must be priorities.
Firstly, which language of Elvish?
Oh.
Sorry, nerds. And secondly, no, I don't.
Yeah, that's so funny.
So funny.
I wonder how many people that teacher told as well. Just like, oh my God, there was a kid that like literally learned Elvish.
Yeah, so that was absolutely hilarious, and I'd completely forgotten about that until a couple of years ago. I was like, wow, I full on made it my whole deal, didn't I?
I mean, it's hard not to. I think we were, in primary school, we were playing Lord of the Rings in the playground.
Yes.
So you'd, like, the bell would ring and you'd have to, like, race, and then you'd be stood in a circle and someone would be like, well, I'm Gladriel. And then I went to an all-girls school at this point, so everyone would be like, fuck, you've taken the one-woman character.
Do I want to be Eowyn? Do I want to be Arwen? Do I want to be the girl on the horse?
I don't think the Two Towers had come out at this point, so it really was just a case of like, shit, the only character that's like decent.
Rosie Cotton.
Rosie Cotton.
Yeah. Play the long game.
And we would just like do the Lord of the Rings in the playground. Yeah. Like we would do Arwen like riding Frodo to Rivendell. We would do like everyone entering Lothlorien. and stuff like that. So it's really great for imaginative play. 10 out of 10 would recommend. If anyone wants to jump into a field and play Lord of the Rings with me, that would be really fun. I know adults do that.
Yes.
There are plenty of fields. The Tories don't own all of them, do they? I can play Lord of the Rings
Not
in one.
after today, baby. Reclaim the fens, y'all.
But yeah, it just, I fucking love this movie so much. We had the advent calendar that when you hit Christmas Day, you got 5 little like Haribo rings.
Whoa.
Like orange rings.
It's not a chocolate though, is it? That's a
No,
flawed
you'd have
advent
chocolate
calendar.
leading up. The Sunday Times did like posters with like riddles.
Ooh, okay.
And you'd have to like, every week you'd get a new part of the riddle and you had to guess which character it was. The world was kind of blowing up with The Lord of the Rings at the time. It was the first time that movies were marketed in such a way that we got to see the behind the scenes of stuff in that way. The fact that extended editions even existed. And thank God they did, because there was so much footage, so many little pieces of dialogue where I was like, that was a really good take, Ian. Like, I'm really glad that I got to see that, because that would have been such a shame for it to end up on the cutting room floor.
And the little things that people complain about, like, oh, you didn't see the struggle of Gimli trying to enter the woods of Lothlorien. How are you supposed to understand the generational struggle between the elves and the dwarves? Because no one cares. It's not important to the story of Frodo
Like, there's
taking the
enough
ring.
like shady looks between John Rhys Davis and Orlando Bloom that I understand that they don't like each other.
But then they have it
I'm
in the
11.
extended edition, and it is kind of, they do it in such a way that it's interesting to sort of reinforce this sort of generational struggle, but also Aragorn's there as kind of like rugged, handsome man who's best friend with all the elves.
Yeah.
You know, sort of negotiating and being like, look, can we just allow this one dwarf? And Haldir, that was his name, Haldir.
Haldir.
A thing that I know because of Warhammer. Haldir was like, oh, fine, because you're Aragorn, we'll let this one dwarf in.
Yeah.
And then he sits very quietly and patiently in the trees.
That's the thing. There's a lot in the extended edition. There's a lot more of like sitting and waiting, but I kind of dig it because once you're in,
Yes.
and you just want more.
Yes,
and the extended
totally.
editions give you more, so that's fine.
I brought a prop
Oh my God!
because this will transition into something very important. She's screeching again. I'll let you have a little look. This is one of the heaviest books I own.
Oh my God!
I know that I said I can't read. That book is full of score and pictures. It is the music of the Lord of the Rings film. The music of the Lord of the Rings films by Doug Adams, not the Hitchhiker's Guide guy. That would be weird. It is a ridiculously detailed analysis of the themes and music within the films, and it's covered in post-it notes so that I know where the Hobbit bits are. Because otherwise,
This is amazing,
isn't it? I teach a bit of music on the side, and one of these dudes that I teach just happened to mention he loves Lord of the Rings as well. He was like, "Oh, I got this really cool book. I'm sure you have a copy." And I was like, "I have not heard of this." Immediately went and bought it. It is one of the best things I own, and I'm sort of occasionally like diving in and sort of like learning to play little bits of like Lord of the Rings. If you hand me a fretted string instrument, I can just about work out the Hobbit theme. I have some in my back pocket that may come out at some point, some funk arrangements of the Lord of the Rings score. Isn't it the most... She's doing a big nerd face, which is absolutely fair.
Oh my God!
And just the detail of it.
Do they go like they're going? Oh my God, I love it. This is the thing. The thing with these movies is they were made by people that love what they do, and it shines in every single minute.
Just the level of detail, like, and this is just the music. This is just the Howard Shore score we're talking about, but it's so deep, and there's so much there, and it does, like you say, it truly reflects like the level of detail in the like the Weta Workshop, the CGI, just the everything. And you know, I love deep lore, but it is possible to delve too deep, isn't it, nerds?
This is the thing. Like, I think they're working from a space where a guy didn't just write a book. A guy decided to get super involved in cartography and invent new languages, created an entire world, and then was like, I'll write a book and set it in my world.
Well, if you're literally
and when
in
you're
the
coming
trenches,
from that version, then there's so much for everyone to play with. Whereas C.S. Lewis, his contemporary, was just like, I really like Jesus. And
What if he was a lion?
I just want to do that.
Yeah.
And like, it's for kids. And everyone was like, yeah, that's also fair enough.
C.S. Lewis wasn't in the war, was he? World War One.
I don't know. He might have been in. I'm making this up. I don't fucking know.
Tolkien.
Obviously.
Sorry to divert back to the books,
Yeah,
but
sorry.
he was in the trenches.
Yeah.
And what do you do when you're in the trenches and you're kind of a literary nerd? Well, you invent several languages and maps to distract from all your friends being blowed up.
That's valid.
And I'm like, I've never been in a trench. No, I've done my time.
This is amazing.
Isn't it the best thing?
Music is interesting. You do music.
Is this a segue?
This is a segue.
Wow, man.
You not tell.
So good. I love it.
I hear you have some new music out, Liam. Because
Yes.
you are a musician
I'm a
yourself,
music
much like
man.
Howard Shaw here.
Not like Howard Shaw and Douglas Adams, not the Hitchhiker's Guide. Yes, I have a new 3-track EP. The band is called Blue Alatar. Why is that relevant, Emily?
I don't know.
Alatar is one of the blue wizards that pisses off to the east. Yeah.
Yay.
I was like, can I do a Led Zeppelin thing where I reference Tolkien discreetly and not do any inappropriate things with underage children?
Ooh.
I looked inside myself and was like, yeah, I can do.
Probably.
I reckon probably. So this particular project is called Blue Alatar, Blue A-L-A-T-R-A. Look at me spell, dyslexic. There's a new EP, it's out now, it's called Kicking and Screaming. This is the first time Blue Alatar have worked with lyrics, which is big. My good friend Simon joined me to do a bit of a sing. I've done quite a lot of instrumental stuff with Blue Alatar in the past, kind of slightly worldy, folky, cinematic, rocky stuff. You know, genres that really sit well together. And this Kicking and Screaming EP is sort of a diversion into slightly more folk rock, I guess.
Nice.
There's sort of... It's not a coincidence that this EP came out the week of the general election. Well, it is a coincidence. It's a coincidence that it came out the same week of the general election, but it really sort of thematically makes sense. There's lots of stuff in there about like, oh, why are things the way they are? Why are older people so selfish? Why is it so hard just to make a damn buck? You know, questions of this nature. I think you'll dig it. It's kind of like a standard rock ensemble, but I also get to play the bouzouki, which is fun.
Ooh.
Yes.
That sounds like a made-up instrument.
Well, they're all made up. Don't open that door. It's a very large mandolin, basically. It's like somewhere between a mandolin and an acoustic guitar, I guess. I bought and learnt mandolin for this stuff. I've
Cute.
got didgeridoo player.
Nice.
Because of course.
Why not?
And person from Cambridge played hammered dulcimer as well. So there's some really sort of nice sort of... I don't even know how to describe hammered dulcimer. It's like if you're playing a harp with a hammer.
Cute.
Because it sort of literally is playing a harp with a hammer.
Plonk, plonk, plonk. That's how I imagine that
Big
sounds.
plonky plonk, yeah. It's really fun. It's only 3 tracks long, so if you hate it, you know, only listen to it 4 or 5 times before you stop.
Yeah.
Kicking and Screaming,
I
Blue
liked it.
Alatar.
I listened
Thank
to it
you.
and I thought it was good.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. Yes, it's good.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to add it to all your playlists in such a way that Spotify thinks I'm paying for bots.
Hooray!
You are not real. You have no power over me.
You can tell I did not write a single note for this movie because I know it off by heart.
Well,
and
this is like, I was on the train right now to write down some notes. I don't really need, other than like
I know
my
this movie
harsh,
inside out.
other than my harsh like anti-Cimmerillion stance. I think I'm sort of, and the other note is isn't it weird that people in their 20s haven't seen it?
What?
Yeah, loads of people. I know this is completely mind-blowing, especially, so I do the Conversation Hat podcast, and every time we do a video about the Lord of the Rings or any sort of Tolkien lore, we put it on the TikToks, and those videos outperform everything else by tens of thousands of views.
Jeez.
Like really significantly outperforming the normal weird stuff we upload for Conversation Hat. So my assumption is, everyone still loves this film. Great,
Yeah.
it's still culturally relevant. I mean, this is why we've got the
Rings of Power.
Rings of Power. We've got the Rohirrim film coming out soon. Something about a hunt for Gollum, apparently. Like, it's still relevant.
There was the musical.
Yeah, exactly.
I fucking love the musical.
And they're still selling out Royal Albert Hall with the musical.
Yeah. Orchestra sing along
live.
to the thing.
Sing along.
Everyone's like,
Bah, 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 bah. Yeah, it's great. Everyone, it's great being in the theatre, and everyone laughs at the one does not simply walk into Mordor.
because it's a meme. Everything's a meme. Every single shot of this is a meme.
There's one lady sat next to me in Royal Albert Hall. When everyone's laughing, she turns to her boyfriend and is like, "What?"
Oh,
it's like, why would you bring her here?
The one person. Well, she can learn that day and then go on to use it. Be like, I learned a funny meme the other day.
That's how people talk about memes in the cafe or wherever people talk.
Do you know what it is though? I watched Star Wars because they were played on TV, and I would watch TV, and so on Channel 5 on a Sunday they would show a Star Wars, so I would be introduced to Star Wars even though it was 20 years since they came out. That doesn't happen. Kids aren't logging on. Jesus Christ, Emily. They're not flicking onto Channel 5 on a Sunday at 6 p.m. to like tune into the Fellowship of the Ring.
Well, it's impossible
there's
to find.
No way to.
Like,
it's not ever shown on television, and even if it was, the kids wouldn't watch it. So unless it's split into like 47 different parts on TikTok, they're not going to watch it.
We had this conversation preparing for this podcast where we were like, are we doing extended or are we not? And I was like, I was fully intending to watch the regular version because the last time I saw it, there was an orchestra there as well. I wasn't paying attention to like, I don't really understand why Gimli's being let into Lost Lot. Again, that's what you sound like. So I haven't seen the non-extended edition in ages and ages.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't find it online.
Yeah.
I could find the two awful animated films.
I'm confused.
The two so there's a
So there's two animated films and they're majestic. So I don't know what awful animated films you're referring to.
Well, the
especially because like one of them is even like clear inspiration for a lot of shots by Peter Jackson in his version. And it uses rotoscope.
Yes, but we shouldn't.
And there are songs.
Let's not go to bat for rotoscope.
And it's John Hurt as Aragorn.
Yes, of course.
So you don't know what you're talking about when you say
but it's terrifying. The Balrog is etched into the back of my eyes from that film. I hate it. I've got on my left eye, it's the Balrog, which is horrendous because the orcs were not rotoscope, they were just dudes in furs.
Yeah, I love it.
So the Balrog is on this eye, and then Aragorn tripping over his sword is in this eye. There's two things that happen in that first film. The second film is just a lot of the one that's just Return of the King is just a preamble to the song Where There's a Whip, There's a Way.
Which is iconic.
And it doesn't end there.
I want it played at my wedding.
Yeah. It's genuinely one of the best pieces of music. I want Wolfpack to cover Where There's a Whip, There's a Way. They won't because they're cowards. But yeah, it's I mean awful in like the sense of terrifying.
Oh yeah,
and,
that's fair. Yeah, the Gollum in that is quite frightening.
Yes, absolutely not with that.
The rotoscope itself is quite frightening.
Yes.
And
the idea to have the orcs is just creepy humans, where is the fellowship and
the like
good
pinpoint eyes. Just very frightening.
I do love it, but it is like welded into the back of my mind in a way I don't appreciate.
Speaking of interesting Balrog adaptations, did you ever see the musical?
No.
Oh my god! So it played at Drury Lane in London for a time, and I went on like when it was closing down, so I got cheap tickets, and I love it. You can listen to the soundtrack, and it's really beautiful. There's some really great stuff. Lothlorien was gorgeous. Gollum and Smeagol, obviously, is played by the same guy. Like has this wonderful song where he like sings with himself. It's like a duet, but one person singing it. It's great stuff. But the Balrog, and the unfortunate thing was, I got really cheap tickets. So I was top of Drury Lane in the gods, looking down, and when you're looking down on something like a spectacle like Lord of the Rings, where they're really trying to do some cool stuff, you see the workings of it because you see it's like when you're that high up
you see
watching
how the
Les
Balrog
Mis,
sausage is made.
You see them rearranging themselves on the back of the barricade to then to turn around and they all be dead.
Well, that's
but you see them
accurate because the French will have kind of done a Daddy Freya dance to,
But like, I saw that when Frodo puts the ring on, an extra puts a hat on him, and he dips out behind somebody, and then it appears elsewhere in the pub as a normal person, but you're not meant to recognise him because he's wearing a hat now. And if you're in the front row, you're like, where did Frodo go? and if you're in the balcony, you go there. He's there, and you can track him. And the Balrog was the same in that if you were in the front row, you would have had wind and fire and this spectacle of this huge creature appearing from nowhere and it dominating the stage and being incredibly like immersive and frightening. I saw 2 big heaters and fans get wheeled on from the sides, and then a bin bag gets stripped up, and people behind it going. And I was like, the Balrog's a bin bag. It's a bin bag.
Bin Balrog.
Bin bag Balrog. Bin bag Balrog.
I always thought the Balrog would be the best character to do like a spin-off of. So he has the fight with Gandalf.
And then he goes home to his wife and kids.
But I think he moves to Seattle.
Another hard day at work.
He goes to Seattle and he starts a mental health radio show, and his uptight brother and his slovenly dad with his dog are there. And the Balrog every day is just like, we've got to throw away that sofa, man. And his dad's just like, I was a policeman. I
want a Balrog holding like a mug like this that says like world's best Balrog, or like some form of like generic cup thing, but like Balrog themed.
Yeah.
I'm workshopping it in my brain as we speak, but like I need it in my life. I need the Balrog, but in like fluffy bunny slippers with like a robe on, being like, I hate Mondays.
Day. Yeah. So here's a question. In spin-offs, you always have like the occasional appearance from like an original, like the Becca of the joke that I'm doing. So who from The Lord of the Rings would visit maybe as like a guest producer or like Roz in... I'm just assuming you know what Fraser is here.
I assumed you were talking about Fraser, but I was keeping my mouth shut because I was like, ha ha ha, it's either Seinfeld or Frasier or Cheers or like one of those things. I'm just going to nod and be like, sitcoms.
Yep.
American sitcoms.
Yes.
Who would, I mean, it'd have to be Lurtz, right? Because it has to be someone evil, right? No one good is visiting the Balrog.
I don't know. I think that'd be kind of fun if it was just like 2 characters that never really met but on opposite sides. So does Faramir know who the Balrog is? I literally almost said Faramir.
Faramir would be like, I heard...
So the audience get a kick out of it, but everyone else, but the Balrog's just like, he's just standing in for Roz. He's a nice cloak. He's very protective of his pool. I'm not going in his pool. I made a fire.
Nice and cool. We're skipping ahead again. That's the trouble as well, that you can't talk about Lord of the Rings without talking about the Lord of the Rings. It's really difficult to stick the conversation to the Fellowship of the Ring.
I will put this out there. Like, Fellowship has like a really special place in my heart, in my mind, because it was the first one.
Yeah.
And it made such an impact.
I think to me, what's wonderful about Fellowship is how much time we get in the Shire. Because we don't get that in any other movie. Yeah. And the Shire is immediately comforting. It draws you in, especially you grew up in Cambridge, I grew up in Suffolk. These places that are essentially what Tolkien based the Shire on. Yeah. We grew up in the Shire, and so when it immediately comes on screen, you're like, yeah, that's what my pubs are like.
But my favourite of the trilogy is Two Towers.
Theoden is fantastic. Bernard Hill. Éowyn, obviously the best female character, obviously, when you're like 11
I'm excited
and you've only got 4 to choose from.
I'm excited for the 25-year anniversary where we see her fighting at Helm's Deep, which I sort of get because she's sort of like a Scrappy-Doo kind of up and Adam character, constantly being held back by the responsible humans in the room.
Mm-hmm.
That Scooby-Doo analogy doesn't work because I just... It does,
because Scrappy-Doo is always trying to walk head-on into the danger, and the rest of the gang are like, hey, let's fucking make a plan first.
Yeah, that is exactly
I like Scrappy-Doo. I got no qualms for Scrappy-Doo. I'm a big Scrappy-Doo fan. I'm here for Scrappy.
And Miranda Hart is... I get skipping forwards now. She is in the War of the Rohirrim
film
that
for
as
her.
as Éowyn as the narrator, which is really cool.
I just always loved watching her, again to skip to the Two Towers, watching her in the behind the scenes being like, and I was employed to do this job, and I was told, you've got to pretend to be in love with this guy, and then obviously Viggo Mortensen walks in the room, and I was like,
oh yeah, pretend.
Of course I can pretend to be in love with that guy.
Let me
and I was
make you
like,
a bad Sue Paragon.
Miranda Otto. Who's Miranda Hart?
Miranda Hart is...
It's like Miranda.
Sorry, nerds. Miranda Otto.
Sorry, the two Mirandas. I mean, you're both wonderful and iconic in your own ways, but it was Miranda Otto, I believe.
Yeah.
Although now I'd be fascinated to watch a Two Towers with Miranda Hart playing Éowyn. She'd like trip up on her way to Theoden and then look to camera and be like, oh. When everyone's like, get out of here, Grima Wormtongue. And she's like, oh, looking to camera like me.
She goes to fight the Witch King, trips, farts. Mary then stabs the Witch King while Bill's distracted.
She's like, that didn't go to plan.
Oh, I can take credit for this. Oh,
I've not seen enough Miranda to be able to give you a proper Lord of the Rings.
I think we nailed it. Don't worry about it.
It's so funny. It's like Miranda and Fleabag are like on the same line, but like one of them's goofy and one of them's like upsetting.
Yes. The beauty of the casting in the Peter Jackson films is that these people were, most of them kind of unknown.
Most of them unknown. Even the ones that were known were not known to my like 11-year-old self. Like
totally.
I don't fucking know who Cate Blanchett is. Yeah. She's not in anything I'm watching.
Yeah. I think if you're going to play the game of recasting Lord of the Rings,
it's so impossible though because it's so intrinsically tied with
yes.
who is. I can't tell you who would make a good Galadriel. Because it's Cate Blanchett. One thing I meant to bring up, very famously, the casting of Elrond went to Grumpy Pants Hugo Weaving.
Yes.
Who makes the best facial expressions.
He does.
But it could have gone to Mr. David Bowie. Thoughts?
Oh, dippers. There's something really cool about that because the Rivendell, like the big Elrond scene is the Council of Elrond. Council of Elrond at Rivendell, where the cast get together to discuss the plot. And there's a certain kind of ethereal fourth walliness to David Bowie that I think would have been really good. And that would have been a great opportunity for him to just like look directly down the camera lens and then back at Gandalf and be like, whoa. Yeah, because he's got that sort of, that weird kind of like not quite of this plane vibe.
Yeah.
Which I think for an elf character makes total sense. Half elf, sorry, nerds.
Oh. Because Elrond could have been in like Rohan easily, like as in like Hugo Weaving could have fit into.
Oh, totally. Anyway, you need like eyebrow power, which is really what he brings.
And on the opposite spectrum of that, which we'll get to in the next movie, the lack of eyebrow power that comes from Barad Dourif's Grima Wormtongue. So it's just eyebrows are very important here
eyebrows
in the Tolkien land. Here in Middle Earth.
Because Christopher Lee's eyebrows are sort of unhinged.
Gandalf's are very bushy.
Very bushy.
Yeah. Well, this has been an absolute joy.
I love this film so much.
Bloody love Lord of the Rings.
It's the best thing in my life. I have permission from my partner to say that Fellowship is the best thing that's happened to me ever.
Oh, that's fair. Where can the people find you?
Oh my God, I'm all over the place. So yes, Blue Alatar, that music is out on digital music platforms. There are social handles for Blue Alatar, but the best place to get me is at LT Guitarist for music and quite a lot of unsubtle Tolkien references. For much less subtle Tolkien hot takes, Conversation App Podcast. You're listening to this podcast now, so when it ends, you just go to the search bar and type in Conversation App Podcast. Have a listen. I love having just wacky, what if the Balrog was a snow demon? You know, these sort of stupid questions. Conversation App Podcast for that sort of thing.
Before we go, two things that when I first watched The Fellowship of the Ring, my dad made a comment about.
Oh no.
And now every time I watch it, it doesn't get out of my brain. So every time I watch it, whenever he goes, "Fly, you fools." Somebody went, what did he say? And then Frodo goes, "No!" And I go, I think he said no. Like 11-year-old humour. And now that's stuck forever. That's part of the dialogue in The Fellowship of the Ring.
Lovely.
And then right at the end, Frodo turns back to Sam with Mount Doom in the distance, setting up the sequel. And he goes, "I'm glad you're with me, Sam." And my dad goes, "And Gollum about 50 yards behind?" Before I even know like what was happening.
Yeah.
My dad came in with that comment. And so now, again, every time it gets to the end of Lord of the Rings, my brain goes, "And Gollum, 50 yards behind."
50 yards behind. Lovely. Yeah.
So there you go. You also now have that. So you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, mate. This has been so much fun. I do hope to come back. And
you will. You've got 2 towers and for Return of the King to do.
Get ready, nerds. I'm going to be me.
And we'll see you next time on Why This Film. Bye.
Bye.